Let's just jump right into it. The FAA exists because of one crash. One crash changed aviation forever, and it's still affecting it. It affects every pilot, mechanic, every airline, everything in aviation. And if you want to get into aviation, this is something you truly need to understand. Because the FAA is going to be part of your career whether you like it or not. It exists because of one crash. My goal with this channel is to make everything in aviation easier to understand as I'm going through and getting my own A&P certificate. And I post every Monday documenting everything that I'm learning. So let's go back to June 30th, 1956. Imagine two planes taking off within minutes of each other in the Los Angeles airport. Both of those planes were headed east, a Super Constellation and a DC-7 full of passengers. Once they got out past a certain point, they were basically flying on their own. There was no radar, no radio. They were calling out their own position, and once they got over the Grand Canyon, those two planes were on a collision course. They eventually collided, and all 128 people on both airplanes died. At the time, it was the deadliest crash in aviation history. Instead of letting that slow us down, the crash exposed how outdated our air traffic control was. So in 1958, 2 years later, Congress passed the Federal Aviation Act, creating the FAA. And from day one, their mission has been very, very simple. Make air travel as safe as possible. Now I know every mechanic or pilot has probably called the FAA a little bit annoying based on the regulations and bureaucracy that they have. But here's my hot take. I genuinely believe that the FAA here is solely here to help us. Most, if not all, the regulations that we deal with exist because something bad happened first. So what does the FAA actually do? Well, they do a lot more than people realize. They certify commercial airlines, they certify maintenance manuals, they certify pilots, mechanics. Everything regarding aviation really kind of goes through an FAA filter. It all has to be approved by the FAA. They even certify schools like Salt Lake City Community College's AMTT program, the one I'm going to right now. They certify repair stations just like the one I work at. Basically, they write all the rules regarding aviation. And why does this matter to me as a mechanic? Well, like I said, my A&P certificate is issued to me by the FAA. Also, every single repair I make is up to FAA standards. Like right now I'm in an accessory shop. I'm only building wheels, but I have to sign logbooks and work according to maintenance manuals that have been approved by the FAA. And it's my job to know how to read those manuals and how to get every bit of information that I need to fix and rebuild those wheels. They can also show up to aviation shops unannounced for an inspection anytime they want. And the shop has to comply no matter what. Even in the shop that I'm in right now, it's just an accessory shop. We're only building wheels and seats. But the FAA still comes through and goes through everything. And I don't even have my A&P certificate yet. I'm not technically certified by them at all. What I am certified is through SkyWest's training program. And that training program is certified by the FAA. So because of that, they can still come up to me and ask me questions. And if I don't know where I'm working in the manual, they'll ask me more questions and I'll dig myself into a deeper hole and get myself into more and more trouble. So knowing how to read and interpret and follow manuals every time you build something, even if you have the process memorized, is so important. And I've actually seen what happens if you don't do that. At the job I'm at right now, the FAA came in to observe an NDT procedure or non-destructive testing. It wasn't even at my base. It was at some other base, and they were watching a mechanic do dye penetrant. This mechanic did everything by memory and didn't know how to refer to the manuals because he wasn't trained properly. And because of that, the FAA called up the headquarters and canceled all NDT testing and pulled everyone's certificate across every single shop of the company. They had to recreate a new curriculum and training course for all of the people that were certified and recertify them. The FAA has that power because they are the ones that approve our practices. And they're not lenient at all, which is very understandable because the stakes are very high. Once you're in the air, you can't pull over if something breaks. That story is a big part of why I built my aviation career quiz linked in the description below. Aviation has a lot of paths: mechanic, pilot, inspector, technology, and figuring out which one fits you and being genuinely ready for it is half the battle. The quiz walks you through where you might fit best, whether it's turning wrenches, flying airplanes, or managing operations. I think it's worth a couple minutes if you're still trying to figure it out. So if you're planning on being a mechanic, you have to know a lot of rules and regulations that were approved by the FAA. And you need to know all of them because chances are you'll bump into an FAA representative and they're going to ask you what you're working on and how you know how to work on it. And the answer to that is always, I'm following the manual, not he told me to do this or I've always done it this way. And here's the thing about that. The FAA doesn't write the rules just to write rules and have power. They're writing these rules and updating them to keep us safe. And almost every single one, if not all, exists because something bad happened first. Now take what I just did last week at my maintenance shop. I went through a dye penetrant class that got me certified in one specific area of dye penetrant. I can inspect wheels with a specific method and form of dye penetrant, and I'm certified to do so. In the past, if you were working in a shop, you didn't need to be certified in dye penetrant. You could just be trained by somebody and then do it. And even if you're an A&P, you have to get certified. And let's rewind to the story of why it exists. On July 19th, 1989, a United Airlines flight was heading from Denver to Chicago. Mid-flight, one of the tail engines suffered an uncontrollable failure. One of the fans broke off and teared through the plane's hydraulic systems, which wasn't even supposed to be possible, and the crew lost all conventional flight controls entirely. They managed to steer the airplane by accelerating on one engine and decelerating on the other, and lowering and raising the airplane by lowering and raising the power that the engines were producing. And this was very, very masterfully done, but in the end they still crash landed. When they were about to land, they got a little bit of bad luck and a crosswind hit them, which made them barrel roll. And about 40 people died, but that was out of the hundreds of people on board. And upon further investigation, the FAA realized that the fan that broke off had a crack in it, and it wasn't found properly. And because of that, they made a rule. Everyone that performs dye penetrant to find cracks has to be certified according to the FAA. In my class, we had to have a minimum of 8 hours in class and 7 hours on the job training. And that's because I only have to do wheels. Just a very specific task and only one way to do it. If I were certified in dye penetrant completely, I would have to do so many more hours of training, and I wouldn't even be able to sign off anything until I became a level 2 penetrant inspector, which takes years. But like I said, the FAA makes rules because things go wrong, and that's why they're here. So when I'm sitting in class, I'm not just pondering about techniques. I'm learning what to do so that United flight doesn't happen again. Almost every rule written by the FAA has a story like that behind it. These rules and regulations aren't useless. They're all written in blood, and that's very important to remember. So how does this tie into my AMTT course that I'm taking at Salt Lake City Community College? From day one, that college is certified by the FAR Part 147. And the FAA sets that curriculum. The school can't change it. The FAA is what makes it, and the school is what teaches it. They also set the minimum amount of hours that you need in training. For me, it's at least 1,900 hours total. And once you meet all those eligibilities, the FAA gives you written and oral exams to take. And there's 3 for each of those to become an A&P. The FAA creates those exams and certifies the people that administer them. They're called designated mechanic examiners. So if you pass all of your exams and quizzes, the designated mechanic examiner can give you your A&P certification, and that is a certificate issued to you by the FAA. Your certificate to work on any aircraft legally. You can finally do what an A&P does on your own. So in closing, the FAA touches every single part of every single aviation career. Literally, you can't be a part of aviation anywhere without bumping into the FAA. Even the way I was fueling planes was controlled by the FAA. Understanding what they do makes you a better and safer mechanic, which increases your value. You realize that the regulations and practices that you're signing off are there for a reason. And you don't want to be the reason that another one shows up. If you've got questions or comments, please ask them below. I read every single one. I mean, I know I only get like 10 views a week, but I still read them. Next week on Monday, I'll be posting about my aviation journey again. Subscribe and join the journey. I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.